Martin Coddington's. Now that's a good movie.
Hi, welcome. Today we're watching. I got in my own head about it. I picked it up and it was all over the place. All right. Hi, welcome. Today we're watching The Brood. The Brood is a movie by David Cronenberg. I believe it was his third feature-length film. The Brood is probably the closest I've seen to David Cronenberg just doing a straight horror film. Usually his films are horrific, but not typically done in a traditional horror film sense. I believe his other earlier works, Rabbit and Shiver, were probably also very similar to standard horror film. But the thing I like about David Cronenberg is he doesn't do anything simply just as a horror film. The Brood is about a woman who is being treated in some kind of psychiatric clinic by some new age psychiatrist who's using something called psychoplasmics. I can't remember what they call it in the movie. Where essentially the idea is that he brings your, mental illness into a physical manifestation so that he can then treat the physical aspects of it. The woman he's treating, though, Nora, she is going through a divorce and a custody battle, and comes from an abusive household as well. Her physical manifestation results in the Brood, which is this children essentially, that react to her subconscious anger and rage and go out and kill the people that she's currently enraged at. I think that it's a very truly, in the sense of horror, horrific imagery of just her rage being embodied and going after, these people. The Brood kills her mother, who, abused her as a child. They killed her father, who ignored this abuse. They kill the school teacher that she perceives as having an affair with her soon-to-be ex-husband. And then they go after the psychologist, and they even physically abuse her own daughter, which I think is a great embodiment just of the cycle of abuse, of she was abused and then she abuses her daughter, and just continues in this. And not only that, but the Brood being her children too. There's even a scene where you watch her give birth to one of the Brood, and she licks it clean and loves it, and And I think it's her nurturing, all of this rage. And it's just all of her repressed anger and how she allowed it to fester inside of her and allows it to like live and breathe. And I think that's why David Cronenberg's horror movies in general work so well, is that he's tackling like very real issues. In fact, he said of The Brood that The Brood was his version of Kramer versus Kramer, but more realistic, because it actually shows just how horrible it all is. Because even the little girl Candy throughout her, she's just like, because she's the one whose family is being split apart at this time, and she's got just this vacant stare through most of the movie, because she's dealing with the fact that she's like has no stability left. She's constantly being transported between places. The final moment in the movie is her being picked up by her dad and being placed in a car, and her dad says, "We're going home." And she has no reaction to this because she no longer has a home. Her home's been split in two. And she has seen the physical manifestation of all of this anger and hatred in the form of the Brood. And I just love that it's called The Brood too, because it's just, that's what's like created all of this inside of her, is just this brooding. And also I love that the husband character, I can't remember, Frank, I think his character's name. Frank has this line too, where, where he says something to the equivalence of, he knew that she was unstable, but was hoping that some of his sanity would rub off on her.
Sometimes when I'm being easy on myself, I say, well, it's not your fault. You got taken in. You got involved with a woman who married you for your sanity, hoping it would rub off. Instead, it started to work the other way.
And then, wanted to make a family with her. And it's just this, inability to see the consequences of these actions. And you've brought a person into this and unable to even recognize that you're doing this to another person. The whole time he thinks that he's somehow being is taking care of her by making sure she isn't seeing her mom, which is, that's portrayed as venomous to both the mother and the daughter in the movie, I think too. Where, he's trying to just get sole custody. He also isn't even doing the basic stuff. He keeps putting off talking to her teacher that needs to, talk to him about something. He keeps dumping her off at her grandparents' house, and he just continues to, not create any kind of stability for his daughter. And so, yeah, Candy is essentially lost. And I think one of the better scenes too is when Candy's has been captured by the Brood, and is being taken to go see her mother. And they're just walking down this highway with the Brood holding each of her hands and just walking down the side of the road. And she's once again just a vacant stare. I think that just showing that once again, this is just another trip between places, because that's where she exists now, is just constantly being shuffled around. But yeah, I think that more horror films should try to focus on real horror. I think that it'd be more impactful by striking at things that we can all relate to or all have a fear of. Because too often, for me at least, the horror genre is cheapening movies as an art form in general. I think that we are too willing to let horror movies get away with lazy storytelling, because, you know, we don't hold them to the same standard as other movies. But I think The Brood is a perfect example of a horror movie that is also art. Yeah, I don't think that there's any excuse that more horror films shouldn't be approached in that lens. But yeah, I'm just a huge fan of David Cronenberg in general, so I recommend watching all of his movies. But if you just need a straight horror film for the season, I recommend The Brood. So that's our episode, and thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed.